Let me say a special good morning to our listeners. Those of you via Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9, good morning and welcome. Those of you viewing via GBN television, whether it's channel 7, 11 or channels 20, good morning to you folks. Thanks for being with us this morning. What about our social media audience? Those of you via our Facebook page, YouTube channels, good morning and welcome. I'm your host, GT, and I'll be with you until it's 10 a.m. this morning. My guest with me this morning, we have the, of course, Honorable Minister, Mr. Ron RedHead, Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture this morning, representing, on Wednesdays we do comment with various departments within and ministries within the government of Grenada, and today we have Minister Ron RedHead representing. Good morning, Chief. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, GT. Thank you. I'm doing well. Good morning to all of your listeners, in particular those tuning in from St. George Northeast. Good morning to the online viewers and listeners as well.
All right. Happy to have you on with me this morning. For some reason, my headphone is just kaput on me, but it's all good. Thanks for having you. I think it's actually my first time or second time ever having a conversation with you.
Yes.
And the first time having a conversation was way before elections. Yourself and of course, the Honorable Prime Minister. Now, I think we did a Zoom.
Yes,
that was back then. Yeah. Of course, man. The preacher chat we've been having before we started off here seemed to be someone I could have a general conversation with.
Yes.
That feels good.
Certainly.
That feels good. Well, welcome. Let's kick things off in terms of your ministry and stuff like that. How's things been of course, being Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture? What are some of the major challenges you think you have faced thus far, being the minister?
Right. Well, I think first off, the ministry is a very busy ministry, and hats off to the staff who are working to ensure that government's policies and mandates are implemented. But the major challenge would be, in my view, is changing the mindset as to how we deliver in relation to youth, sports and culture. Understanding that what was is no longer in place, and we need to focus on what should be so that we can benefit the vast majority. I think overall that is the major challenge. It's always difficult to change the mindset of somebody. So I think we've been working feverishly to implement policies and programs, but overall to understand, to get people to understand that we need to go a different direction is always a difficult task, and that's a challenge.
You being a youth yourself, if I could say that, and dealing with the Ministry of Youth, and how has it been the process of going through from the start of you taking up the role as minister? We're not talking challenges here now.
Yes,
just the overall way of how the functioning of the ministry. How's that been for you?
Yeah, well, it's a little too slow. It's a little too slow. The government bureaucracy, it's there for a reason. We have to understand that, but sometimes it takes too long to get things done, and by the time you can actually have it in action, the effect or the event that you wanted the policy for is almost non-existent. This is why visionary and advanced planning is going to be critical, understanding how to adapt in situations. And so far it has been a challenge, but I can tell you it has been a benefit, because it tested my own capacity to be in positions of difficulty and come out most of the times on top.
All
right. So it's been going well.
All right. Yeah. Tell me, let's focus a little bit on sport in this segment, because there's a lot of sporting activity going on right now.
Correct.
We know that over the weekend there was some activity at the stadium. Forgive me, I'm not a sporting enthusiast.
No problem. Well, I'll share the information with you. No problem.
Let's talk about sport for a wee bit. Let's talk about sport, and tell me what in some of the issues that's going on with sports in Grenada. Of course, even though it's good stuff, even though there's some negatives, let me know what's going on with
definitely. Sport. All right. So, we intend to have an honest conversation this morning. So, currently we have the CBN Winlot Windward Island school games, secondary school games, that's going on. Grenada is the host. It's a combination of the Windward Island. So you have Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines currently competing in this. So far, Grenada is leading. I am happy to report, but you could never rule out Dominica, and in particular St. Lucia. So the athletes there, they're really doing their best. St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well have been doing their best. But as it relates to sports, one of the challenges that we have discovered in coming in is the lack of organization from a national level of sporting clubs, associations, organizations, etc. So we are embarking to implement the national sports policy. That is going pretty okay. We are about 80 to 85% completed. Right now we are doing the renovation in the various parish council offices. So we've started Karakou, for example. We are going to start a number of the others, and the public will be updated in time to come. The other aspect that we are looking at is how do we fund sporting associations fairly, but do it in a way that the government is not seemingly bankrolling associations, but is actually complementing and investing in the development of athletes from the grassroots and community level up into the national and international level. So this to me seems to be the two biggest areas that we are currently embarked upon, and we are working feverishly to get that done. We're also trying to revive cricket in Grenada. So a number of MPs, so St. Patrick, for example, they have been requesting from foreign countries assistance in terms of gears. Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister, is launching a cricket program soon, and we have been looking to see how we can bolster the grassroots and community cricket programs that we have to take it forward. So all in all, we have good relations with the majority, if not all, sporting associations in the country, and we expect that as we roll into Carifta, we expect to see a heightened awareness of athletics, and we expect that Grenada would perform well. So all in all, we have some things coming on stream certainly that we'll announce in time, and it's going well. It's going well.
We know sports has always been something that Grenadians like, from cricket to football, the athletics.
It brings people together.
It brings people together. But we are sort of slow down. We understand, COVID and that slow down. You being the minister, what are your plans to, or what do you think, the vision to kind of elevate sports in Grenada?
Well, the major thing that we had to grapple with when coming into office was the situation with the schools where extracurricular activities were not being performed. So having to deal with COVID-19 as one factor, you had that still looming over. So my biggest concern in that period was that facilities in particular, and even long before that, were not properly maintained. So we have a lot of work to do. So for example, just to have the CBN Windward Island Games in Grenada, we had tremendous work to do with our facilities. Some of them still incomplete, but nonetheless it can still serve the purpose to actually have the games. But in terms of the maintenance of the facilities, so what we were able to do, and as you mentioned, vision, was to say that we are no longer just simply issuing a contract to cut the grass in a playing field, but what we are doing is seeking to build out facility managers who can look beyond just cutting the grass. If a fence is broken, they can report this to the ministry, or they themselves, once they have the resources, can fix it, and they'll then submit their bills, etc. We'll corroborate and then issue pays, etc. But have the work being done, have somebody dedicated to manage the facility to keep it up to a standard. Right. So that is something that we have changed since coming in.
All right, tell me, we're still in the sport. I want to talk about we know we are in the year of Anderson Peters defending his javelin world championship, and in 2024, the Olympic year and so forth. What is the latest in terms of preparation on the ministry side? We have we're hearing nothing about Kirani James, Anderson, Felix.
Right.
Hearing.
So on the ministry side, we are doing the basic components. Actually, we're getting ready for Carifta, which is next year. And as you know, we intend to have this be something very big. There is the local organizing committee, and we have only recently passed that cabinet to have the national organizing committee. So the local organizing committee is a link or bridge between the Carifta body and our local entity here. But we have embarked upon a national organizing committee simply because next year in particular is going to be 50 years Grenada celebrates for its independence. And we intend to market almost every activity along that line. So therefore the CARIFTA will require an extra boost, so to speak, to ensure that when it is hosted here, that we can accomplish things. We have some challenges as we go towards that we've discovered. So for example, to ensure that we bolster coaches, we have already discussed with different coaching staff how they can support or increase the support to athletes so that our performance in CARIFTA is going to be top notch. We have some challenges with the facilities themselves, and we're working out still how do we achieve that goal and without disrupting too much. This is one of the reasons why some of the events at the National Stadium will pose a challenge as we go into next year, because the upgrades, the repairs that is required, etc., we would have to be tight on schedule. So notwithstanding those challenges, we are confident that we will achieve it, but it's just to say that we are working towards it and we are doing the work necessary. Behind the scenes, it's being done.
You know, you spoke of it, and I did have a question you lined up in terms of, you know, the latest in terms of the stadium refurbishment. You know, especially we're going to have the athletic stadium tracks. What is specifically going on, I should say, with the athletic track? Will that be replaced?
Yeah. So the intention is to
or just repaired, replaced, or repaired?
You won't be able to just repair it. So the intention is to replace it. We have looked at least 3 different samples and looked at the 3 different proposals. We are in the process of finalizing which one we will proceed with. At the ministry level, we already have decided that we should go with one, but of course the technical knowledge required, we want to certainly get that. So it is sent off to the Ministry of Works, and we're waiting as to how we proceed in that manner. But definitely the tracks need to be relayed, and it will serve not only for the CARIFTA games, but hopefully other international games. We are also big on sports tourism, so therefore this investment is not only going to be just about the CARIFTA, but long term.
All right. You know, I asked it particular to the stadium because, you know, Grenada Stadium has been given the highest rating possible.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to know if we can now maintain that moving forward.
Oh, certainly. That's the intention, and we will maintain that. There's no question that over time, part in the challenge is that when we do these upgrades, how do we maintain the stadium to keep it at the standard? But certainly, that's not an issue.
All right. Another question I have is pertaining, and we still keep in that little sports kind of feedback from we bit. We know we're in preparation for the cricket match later on this year.
Right.
How's that in the year? How that coming along? And we know the English team is doing good later on this year and so forth. How is that the preparation and stuff coming along for that?
Well, I would like to encourage the public to stay tuned. We do have some concerns. As you might be aware, there's upgrades to be had at the stadium. It's already agreed upon, and one of the challenge would be that the workers coming in order for them to do the work, they would need absolutely exclusive use of the stadium to do the upgrades. So we may have some challenges, but nonetheless, as I mentioned, one of the things that we are doing is trying to see how we can work around all of these challenges to succeed in the area of sports. So as it relates to cricket, I am not going to make a particular statement on it, but I will say stay tuned and we'll give an official update as the information comes in.
All right, that's interesting to know. Now, tell me, the Ministry of Sports, still, you know, we hear, of course, what the sports is doing in terms of assisting the GFA with the current stalemate and, you know, the impasse that is now crippling football a little bit in Grenada. If you could talk about that, tell me. I see you smile.
So I do smile. But one of the challenges that we have seen is that associations and their parent organizations will go through things from time to time. And it's very difficult for the ministry to intervene because we do not have jurisdiction over some of these bodies while they are operating in Grenada and is registered. In terms of what goes on in the internal affairs, the Ministry of Sports has no jurisdiction over that and cannot influence, at least at the surface, in these things. But what I often try to do, both as minister and as a ministry, in terms of PS, other sport officers, etc., is to always keep a cordial relationship with the associations. So whatever they are going through, we try our best to help. We cannot and would never be able to assist in every single issue that an association will face or associations across the country will face face. But what we try to do is to see how we can always meet them halfway, right? So whether it is concessions or we can actually give direct cash to assist and support their programs, we do so.
All right. So we drew for a break. Let's take it. We come back and suddenly have more discussion this morning. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday. We coming right back. Stay with us.
Traditional Bass, the foundation of our carnival. It's where it all started. So on Saturday, July 29th, over 10 traditional bass bands will showcase our rich and deeply diverse traditional bass. Let's go to Hero Square, Victoria in St. Mark from 3 p.m. Come see the Short Knee, Maypole, Wild Indians, Mocha Jumbies, and Beko as they parade the streets. Capture the experience, the color, the sights and sounds of what's truly ours. With free admission for the entire family. Log on to www.spicemasgrenada.com for everything carnival. Traditional Bass Festival, Saturday, July 29th, Hero Square, Victoria.
The NLA is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
New era, chaos and LED. Get on us, Lord. Grenada had the best mass by far. Grenada had the best job in the whole wide world. Grenada had the best mass by far. Grenada had the best job in the whole wide world. Watch mass and watch my canal. Soca gone international. That's going around the globe. Soca not just for carnival. Watch mass and watch my canal. Soca gone international. That's going around the globe.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday, the 26th day of July. I will say June, July 2023. Welcome back, Minister Warren RedHead. Let's get into another field of our conversation this morning. I want to get into culture.
Yeah.
Because we know Carnival 2023, as we would say, Spice Mass.
The evolution.
Yeah. Let's talk about Carnival 2023. Mm-hmm. Preparations thus far, you being the Minister of Culture, tell us about some of the preparation, how it's going on, and I'll be getting to more into the conversation about it.
Yeah. No, well, it's going pretty okay. I think that the committee, well, not committee, but the board of SMC is doing a pretty okay job in terms of working out the transition from what was into what it could be. I think part in the challenge that we have discovered is getting the mindset to understand that we're moving in a different direction. It's a different dispensation, and we need to do things differently. It has always been a challenge coming in, and I'm certain that it will still linger as long as it will, because you're dealing with people, and the mindset is always one of the most difficult things to change. But overall, I must say that this carnival season, I have seen a marked improvement. Certainly when we came in, the carnival we experienced compared to this one, the build-up is totally different, and it speaks to the ability of having the experience of what was, being able to now project what we want it to be. Give or take, we have minor challenges here or there, but I think overall the trajectory and the direction of carnival is going pretty okay.
Your expectation for 2023 carnival?
Right. My expectation as to who would win or
We're talking about, when I say expectation, we're talking about the overall running of Carnival, the overall, what is expected for it to bring to Grenada for 2023. You know, we're expecting a lot of visitors. I mean, I'm hearing about the loads of visitors, the bookings and so forth coming every year and so forth. What's your overall projections for it?
Yeah, well, it should be very impressive. That's what I would say. One of the things we tried to do for this year, and certainly we're going to do it for next year, is to begin to sow the seeds of developmental components to our culture, meaning that we invest a lot in marketing through SMC, but the role of the Cultural Foundation and how it partners with SMC to develop and feed into what we market as a product is something we have commenced building. That is going pretty okay. We are confident that as it relates to Calypso, Soca, and Pan, that we have solid programs now from a drafting stage to be able to roll out. We have an MOU with Pan that we expect to sign sometime in August officially. We are putting the structures in place to build out the school program and return secondary school Soca competitions. We're going to partner with Looney Spack and Electrify to be able to do that. I believe that they have an excellent opportunity to partner with the state in learning to teach or having to teach our younger generation of soca artists quality music as opposed to just mouth open words jump out. I'm not chiding any of our existing soca artists, but the quality of soca that we can get is still untapped, and therefore programs that is going to improve quality of lyrics, diction. You know, Dash always would sing about it, and you could hear the difference in a quality soca artist versus somebody who's just starting. So we want to invest in the younger generation at a younger stage so that when they become older, the quality that they produce is going to be in line with the product that we are attempting to build.
All right. Now, Minister, I want to know the true situation with the Queen Show.
Yeah.
I've been hearing various versions. You being the minister, I know you probably have the version that folks will really like to hear. We have heard Ms. Jenny Simon, we heard Ms. Shama Wells, others making serious worrying allegation about yourself and the Spice Master Board, especially the political interference and so forth. What is your response to the resignation and the whole Queen Show debate? Let's hear
Queen Show will go on. None of what is being spoken of by individuals that you call is true. No one can produce any letter that I submitted disrespecting anyone, attempting to call out NNP, NDC. I don't have time for that. So, just to say, my intervention or my involvement at that level was for accountability. And that's all I would say for now, because I will speak to it maybe at Parliament and whenever the other issues arise. Because, GT, let me just say this. As I mentioned, what used to happen before. No, I wasn't there, I don't know, and I don't interfere. Individuals were involved in this Queen Show for months. I didn't interfere with that because it's a build-up. But certainly as we progress into hosting the event on the night, accountability, the systems of accountability must be in place, because we have to account for whatever resources are spent. And any chairperson of any committee is accountable to the board is accountable to the minister is accountable to cabinet, parliament, and essentially the people of Grenada. So therefore, that is how we are going. What I can say is that so far, since we came in, the audited financial statements of SMC is now up to date. And we are now in a position that we can lay it in parliament, people would get to see and can review the reports. They will see the income, they will see the expenditure, and it will help guide how we invest into Spice Mass, because we desperately need greater investments. But in order to do that, we need stronger accountability mechanisms to ensure that when a dollar is spent, we know exactly what this dollar is spent on, and it's predictable, and whether or not we need to increase more, etc. So it was just along those lines, and as I said, if I have to make the email public, I will do so, but no one can produce any letter. So all the statements being going about and so on, that's totally false, and it's only coming from one section of the population, I must say, and they are unable to produce anything, and they can quote me on that.
Right.
No one can produce anything.
So you're saying accountability was the main issue behind whatever debacle there is? No.
Accountability and things along ensuring that the mechanism is in place for reporting what exactly is going on to the board, because the board has to report to the minister ultimately. And when I say the board, through the chairman, there's a process, but oftentimes what we need to do from a statutory board level is to build relationships. So I came back from Canada, and I had to do a follow-up personal, but I chose to send an email instead because I was a bit under the weather. So that was the issue. There was no, that's totally false, GT, I can tell you. It's totally false.
Well, I'm assuming that will clear the air in terms of what people have been hearing.
Of course.
That will clear the air, and of course, as you said, probably an official statement will be made one of these days to get this settled one.
Yeah, because you see, the other thing is, I don't want to support going down a rabbit hole with negativity, because that is what it is. It was just designed to distract ultimately the queens from participating in the thing, etc. So my position as the minister, the show will go on, and the show is going on. The board is doing a wonderful job. I have said so in the past, and I can stand by that now, that they are doing a good job in preparing the queens. The queen show will go on.
All right. Yeah. So the resignation has not hindered the processes in any way?
Well, I haven't seen any resignation letter.
Well, I'm hearing there's resignation, so you haven't seen that.
I have not seen a letter, no.
Okay. That's another story. Yeah. We move on. Let's still talk about Carnival. What are some of the changes we expect to see for Spice Mass? More Carnival.
Right. Well, we have
some of the Juve we're hearing, I understand there'll be no judging of the Pretty Mass this year, and so what's really taking place?
Right. So as it relates to not judging the Pretty Mass, part in our challenge that we discovered was that the amount of locally owned mass bands that we have officially is somewhat still insufficient, and it's no attack on them, because there were periods when they were the best, so to speak, but over time it has dwindled, partly because we actually need to build out programs in terms of costume making, wire bending, that sort of thing, to help keep the tradition alive.
Is the problem incentives?
The problem is incentives. The problem is also competition. So there is the new injection of bands that are non-judged or does not take part in the competition, and therefore the interest, the resources that they have far exceed what our local mass bands have. So it puts them at a disadvantage. So therefore the competition is futile, because whether or not they win, you don't have anything really to judge on, because the foreign bands, so to speak, are taking up the larger spaces and they have the greater interest. Again, part in the challenge is the ability to adapt to the situation and adapt in a way that we do not destroy the traditional mass. So one of the things that we are doing big is to return the prominence of traditional mass in this carnival. So as you see, the event that takes place in St. Mark, for example, that highlights our traditions, etc. We are now actually placing this officially on the calendar to give it that prominence that it requires, and see how for next year we'll be able to invest in it. One of the things that I want to do is to be able to identify each of the shows and events of Spice Mass, a cost to each of them, so that in areas where we need to bolster, we can do so easily. We did not have in the past sufficient accountability and the ability to know exactly what was happening, and as such it hindered how you can plan and predict what you need to inject, whether or not you need to increase or decrease this, etc. So we are now putting that mechanism in place. So there is some issues with the mass ban, and I am hopeful that in for next year we'll be able to solve it. We've met with them. I have met with the mass bans as minister. This is the first time since that has occurred, so I know their concerns directly. I also know the opportunities that exist for the so-called foreign bands that are around, and how we can collaborate. Whether they want to compete, they have indicated they're not interested in competing, but certainly those bands that want to compete would require a greater support base, certainly from SMC and state by extension.
Tell me, there's been talk for a number of years now where they're saying that Grenada's carnival is losing the Grenadianism of it. If it's a proper word to use in between it's losing that Grenadianism of it. It's become to what is not representing us to a point. I'm sure you've been an individual looking along and you have seen that yourself.
Yeah.
Is there any plans within the Ministry of Culture and so forth to get back that sense of Grenadianism into carnival?
Yes.
It seems to be becoming something else than representing totally Grenada carnival as before. You understand? What's your take on that?
Right. So that's why we are actually introducing Grenadian history in the syllabus. Right. We need to regain our identity, regain, as you have said, Grenadianism back into all what we do. So, as I mentioned about the developmental aspects of sports, we're doing the same with culture. The issue of wire bending, costume making, teaching people how to tune pan, how to play pan, that is something that we need to develop as a state in terms of the capacity to be able to do that. Because over time, what you would see is that nobody knows where they can go to get a short knee costume made, right? And an authentic one. Right, so we need to build out that capacity so that we can sustain the culture from a Grenadian standpoint. The other thing we need to do is invest properly in identity. There is no official Grenadian style, wear, clothing, etc. So from a cultural standpoint and mindset, we need to say exactly what it is that defines us as Grenadians. So this is why the 50th independence anniversary is going to be important, because it will lay the foundation for the next 50 years as to how we treat with developing that capacity so that we can continue our traditions and continue to educate people on the Grenadianism, as you have said.
Good word there. Anyway, we're coming right back. We drew for a break. When we come back with this, I want us to get into a conversation about youth. I think that is something that is so important that we need to discuss. The state of crime and everything that entails with it when we come back. Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday the 26th. So we're coming right back after the break. Stay with us, folks.
NIS, our team proudly works to support the evolving needs of Grenadians. We have made some changes to our operations and want to keep you informed. Firstly, we are happy to introduce the new unemployment benefit. This benefit will provide an insured person with 50% of his or her former income in the case of sudden unemployment. To support this benefit and other benefits we offer, it was necessary to increase the contribution rate. The contribution rate will increase gradually each year until it reaches 16% in 2031. As always, the contribution will be split between you and your employer. The pensionable age will also increase from 60 to 65 years. This increase will also be gradually reaching age 65 in 2029. Pensioners will continue to be eligible for a pension from age 60, but will receive a reduced payment. The NIS recognizes that the prices of basic customer goods are increasing globally. Therefore, we are happy to also increase the weekly minimum pension payment by 25%. Finally, we have adjusted our survivor's benefit payment to a percentage of the age pension minimum. Widows, widowers, and dependent parents will receive 100% or $58 weekly, while children will receive 50% or $29 weekly of the deceased's pension. We are here to make the transition to these new changes as clear and simple as possible. If you have any questions on how these changes impact you and your family, please contact our new informational hotline at 440-6647 or visit www.nisgrenada.org. Thank you for allowing us to be your social security provider.
Spice Up returns to the Esplanade Mall courtyard. Spice Up the Esplanade. Every Wednesday and Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Spice Up the Esplanade. Your all-in-one Spice Mass event. Get a taste of everything carnival. From music to mass to food to fashion. All things carnival in one place. Esplanade Mall, July 7th to August 11th. Don't you miss it.
Let me say welcome back, listeners and viewers, once again. It's to the point for today, Wednesday, the 26th day of July. Welcome back once again, Minister Ron RedHead. I did mention before the break, I want to divert our conversation a little bit this time, talk about youth. You know, how are things going in the Ministry of Youth? We're talking about the things going, especially the youth programs,
right.
In specific the Imani program and so forth. We have been hearing about the Youth Biz and other programs like, the Project Fly and so forth that was started by the previous administration and so on, considering that increase in violence and several choppings on murders and so forth. Right. What are the plans for your ministry as the lead ministry to deal with the address, of course, pertaining to those issues?
All right, so let me speak from what we inherited from that background. So far, we have not stopped any of the government youth programs that we inherited. The only one which is suspended is Project Fly, partly because the Project Lean, he resigned. But his resignation is not to say that he has given up youth work, because he's actually involved now with the Wiry project with USAID, dealing with targeting data collection in various communities that are susceptible to crime and violence, and understanding what is contributing to that, so that the programs and interventions that government and other non-state actors can pursue are informed from data, and makes it a bit more meaningful and impactful. So that's the first thing there. What we have done so far was to give a full assessment of all the programs. The Imani program and the Youth Biz, the two larger of the groupings of programs, is what we have been able to complete a comprehensive assessment on. In particular, as it relates to the Imani, you had about 7,000 young people throughout its history in 2013. It was prior, but the new Imani from 2013 had about 7,000 young people passing through it. So far, the amount that we have is just around 3,000, but it should be under 3,000, a more realistic figure, because we've been able to get about 600 young people into permanent employment of the program. So lift them out of the program and repeating the cycle and actually employ them, whether through contracts in the public and private sector. One ministry, for example, that has taken the lead is the Ministry of Karaku Pidimatnik, to give the young Imanis contracts as opposed to keeping them on the program and receiving the $700 stipend.
All right. Yeah. I'm not sure if you listened, but last night we had the opposition leader had, of course, an interview in issues of crime.
Yes, I listened.
And violence. The opposition also, of course, had released detailing statements how they to address the issue. Then we even have been, of course, sessions with young people on the island and so forth. In fact, we even heard. I have also heard the Honorable Andy Williams giving some praise to that. Tell me, what as separated in the Ministry of Youth, separate to the Ministry of Youth, how you doing on this particular issue, and tell me about that.
Right. So we have since received 2 proposals since coming in to the ministry on potential programs as it relates to targeting and reducing youth crime and violence. We have reviewed programs that was submitted by Dr. Chaitan to the former administration. It was there for a long time on the shelves. Nothing was being done about it. So what we are trying to do is to come up with the best approach. Now, oftentimes, in order to tackle crime, you can't go announcing that you will do X, Y, and Z. Oftentimes, you have to be strategic in how you deal with it, because you want to intervene in a way that you do not make the criminals or the criminal-minded aware of how you are going to target it, so that they can either subvert or distract away from the interventions that are required. So what you need to do is to meet with the stakeholders. The second thing you need to do is to investigate where are the hot spots or trouble spots, and investigate and understand what is contributing to the crime. Because I do not necessarily share the view that we have an exponential increase in crime. So no, we do not. For example, sexual crimes are down from what it used to be.
Yes.
What we have is a situation where these peaks that occur, because I can tell you, since the days of the revolution, we have been having violent crime. The mighty revolution was not able to solve that in its 4.5 years. So let us be realistic about the approach that we should take. Should the government resort to the plan like Barbados, not report crime because it will be bad for tourism? We do not believe so. Should we also resort to the strategy by always talking about crime? So, for example, neighbor Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately so, almost every day you can hear some criminal activity taking place, and that is headline. What we have to do is, in meeting with the stakeholders, is to come up with the best approach. And I can tell you, as it relates to the unfortunate act of taking one's life, suicides, right? Reporting suicides in a manner which can then, I wouldn't want to use the word inspire, but trigger a trend is something we have to be cognizant of. So how, from a journalistic standpoint, media standpoint, we manage that is going to be important. So crime in its entirety is not to say that it has happened and we must just start throwing our hands up in the air and screaming and running and holding press conference, and you don't need to create the hysteria. In order to deal with something and solve it, what you need to do is to sit. And I think the Prime Minister gave his address last week on the matter in relation to what we need to do for crime and what we are doing. So this is not a case that we are not doing anything. Take, for example, the crackdown on guns. The reason why we are seeing more guns and apprehending and getting more guns is not because just the fact that there are guns out on the street, but it's because there is now a system in place to actually target, to reduce. So when you report that you get guns, it's not to say that because more guns coming into the country, you just have a mechanism now of being able to get the guns before they reach into the communities, because it's imported. So that's the strategy. Also, Prime Minister spoke on the ability for our ports, which are so porous. They are very, very vulnerable. So almost anything could pass through or sneak through if you have the right connections, etc. in place. So having equipment that can scan the barrels, in addition to humans checking and so on the contents, is something that we need to invest in, because we need to get all the guns off the streets and in the hands of our young get it out of the hands of the young people. So it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And yes, we must take a collaborative approach, but in order to get that collaborative approach, it cannot be plucked from the sky. We need to engage stakeholders. We need to know what the situation is, so that the interventions that are required to target crime is going to be clinical and not just a knee-jerk reaction out of emotion. Because I can tell you, there was one headline once where a gentleman had an AK-47 and was shooting police. Crime was active then. There were other instances of other violent crimes that took place in the history of our country where there was a spate of killings against women. So there were periods in our history, and will always be, unfortunately so, irrespective of laws, irrespective of other systems that you put in place or policies. What we have to do is to work on programs to try to reduce the concept of criminal activities. So whether it is from the police standpoint, whether it is from the state standpoint, what they have to be targeting is not going and reacting, but to reduce it before it actually occurs. That is the problem.
I take your point, and I understand. But you know, sometimes as citizens, we like to hear from government.
Yeah.
You understand? We want to hear that, well, we are dealing with the matter of some, even though the details are not given. Yeah. As you say, you can't tell the folks what you're going to do. Yeah. But you know, sometimes folks would like to hear, well, we know what's happening, and we
so let me assure the public that as a government we are very concerned with the crime and violence situation in the country. We have always been concerned of it. This is why we are strongly of the view, for example, that we need to look into the criminal act. I just forgot the exact thing of it, but well, in terms of reviewing the laws and all these other things around crime and violence, it just slipped my mind. But in other words, we are engaged in these discussions. You can rest assured, this government and administration, although we are young, we do not believe in hysteria. We do not believe in knee-jerk reactionary responses to events. What we have to do as a citizen, we are approaching 50 years. We need to ensure that we sit down and understand what is contributing to the violent crime. And then we can put specific measures to be able to tackle it. So collaboration is required, but that is only one aspect of what we need. We need the information, and there are professional people who can help. They need to be in a position to do their work. The institutions need to work, etc. So that's how we're going to approach it.
All right, Melissa, I want to get a bit into your constituency in this segment. We are almost trapped for time already. We do know there are listeners and viewers out there who may have a question or two for you they would like to ask. Tell me, how things going as MP for the St. George's Northeast? What is it, of course, in the short space of time? How have things been going? Will you be able to achieve and so forth in your particular constituency?
Well, it's going excellent. The 4 points that we campaigned on in terms of ensuring that medical stations, sport facilities, are upgraded, etc., that we bring private sector investment in the constituency, that all of that is being achieved. So I can speak to those 3 areas for now. Although we are doing small projects here and there throughout the length and breadth of the constituency. But I don't want to place too much emphasis on that simply because as a member of parliament, this is part of my prerogative. I'm obligated to fix the road when the road is in shambles. So as it relates to bringing investment, we can confidently report that I have visited the area on 2 occasions and witnessed the tremendous work that the team there is doing, that government has given some incentives to have KM2 solutions set up shop in the constituency of St. George Northeast. Of course, on a business level, as their private business between Spice Basket in terms of the use of the building and so on, I can't get into that. But what I can say is that KM2 Solutions is going to be offering close to 600 available jobs, which means our young people in the constituency are going to be required to fill those jobs and throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, wherever they can afford to come to get the jobs. One of the interventions that we did recently was to have what is called a job preparedness workshop in the constituency at Spice Basket, around the same area, to get some young people who may have difficulty in writing an application or even scoring the high points during an interview, get them up to standard as to what is required so that they can actually get the job. And that was specifically targeting unemployed young people in certain areas. So we did host this, it was successful, and we see we've made some critical observations as to how we can improve. This is expected to be rolled out throughout the various constituencies because throughout there are unemployed people who are looking for jobs. As it relates to playing facilities, we have successfully, within 1 year, been able to complete all of the work. So there was no Lamwood playing field project ever before on the books. What was that every election cycle somebody would go there with a tractor and dig and grade and give false impression. What I can safely report is that this field is now being managed by the Ministry of Sports, and all of the upgrade work, we have completed the cricket turf and we are doing the road going up to the playing field. We have already completed the scope of work to do the bathroom and washroom areas in the on the field itself, and that is going well. So hopefully by the time next year, this time, all of that should be completed. The Lamwood playing field is going to be transformed. We have already completed the costings for upgrading the Vendom playing field, and in short order, once all goes well, the Ministry of Works will do what it has to do, and the bidding, if necessary, will be out there to have this playing field upgraded. We have also been able to upgrade the medical station in Gurup, and work is already on the way. I've met with the contractors for the New Hampshire Willis area, where we are going to upgrade this one and rebuild the nurses or doctors' quarters at the back. We are going to be distributing this morning refrigerators, not to all, but some, until we get there to the medical stations, because a problem we saw in September of last year was that the same refrigerator that was being used for vaccine, medication, etc., had to be used by nurses for their drinks, their condiments, etc., and that is something that we could not accept. So we are contributing to a large extent in terms of transforming and making St. George Northeast into a stable and progressive community.
My final question before we entertain some phone calls. It's 1 year you have been in government, 1 year you've been the minister of the particular constituency. What's your vision for the Northeast?
Yeah.
You know, being in this particular, of course, era that we in, this particular term of government, what's your vision?
I want to see Northeast return to its glory days, particularly with the community spirit. I think that as a constituency, we are still largely divided. A major division is this NNP-NDC business. But we need to regain that camaraderie, regain certainly the sporting activities. Northeast was well known for its contributions to culture, the mighty Manikou, the amount of people who contributed, athletics, football, cricket, you're talking, a number of activities. And it is time for us to regain that spirit. And I would like to see the farmers in particular in Northeast return to their glory days, where they were partly known as the community who actually provided good food for the nation and feed the nation, because we have the land space for it and we have the capacity. What we need now is a leadership to be able to drive that agenda.
All right, good. Let's take our very first caller. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to Mr. RedHead, my constituent representative. I listened to you, and I want to advise that in dealing with youth violence, or violence on a whole, now the Word of God tells us that in the latter days, violence will be great in the earth, so God cannot lie. So no matter what you do, they will have violence taking place, because there is a God in heaven, there is a devil on the earth. And as long as we, as human beings, do not get in alignment with God, our Creator, we will always have the devil taking preeminence over us. So I would like to advise you to arouse your leaders, your Christian, quote-unquote, I didn't say religious, your Christian leaders in the constituency and in the nation to get out there and evangelize the young people. Make them know that there is a God who loves them, and they don't have to be like they are. If they receive Christ into their hearts, their lives will be changed, will be different, and the whole country would benefit. That's my advice to you, sir. Have a blessed morning. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Let's entertain another caller, 435-2041, 435-2041. Get the opportunity to ask a question or two, or maybe probably contribute some way or the other, in terms of statement from Minister Ron this morning. Ron, you seem like the calls are coming slow, before we let me look at the question. Let me entertain the call. Lost that caller there for some reason or the other. I was thrown off my question I was going to ask you because I want to take the phone call. But let's take the call. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, and good morning to my honorable minister. We love you. Take good care of yourself and do what you're doing. Have a good day, and just remember, your people from the Northeast will do anything for you because we love you, love you, love you. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning. 435-2041. So we have 5 minutes left on today's program. Let's go back to the phone line. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Morning, GT, and how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing too well, And Mr. Ron, I want to talk to him a bit because he gave me some promises and I'll never see him again. And the promise he made to me is very, very important. So he come to my home. I show him what I needed, and he promised. And up to now, the promise didn't come true. But I thought that the promises I make for another neighbor next by me. She have children, but they need the bathroom and thunder, rain, thunder, lightning, had to come by me to use my, but they don't have it. They really need of the help. She have the lady's number. She come to his office, and up to now, no starting, nothing is happening. They really need help. Children need help. When rain falling, they have to go outside. They don't know what to do, what they have to do. They really need the bathroom and the toilet. They paid promises. The house itself want repairing. My house want repairing. We need help. And Mr. Ron passed right in my yard. I took him inside my home. I showed him the stove I'm cooking on. He said, no, I wouldn't like that nothing to happen to you because you've been there a long time. I want to help you to get one. Up to this day, I'm hot from me again. I can't help with the stove out to say it like that because you know why? I really think I was an aged person. I just take my 87 years and I do everything on my own. I really need help. Come around and see what we need and give us a helping hand. So if you help in the constituency in the Northeast, Tempe people really need help too. We really badly need help. The whole road in Tempe need help, all the bridge breaking down and no bushes all around the place. It's really looking ugly. Take a run in Tempe, Mr. Ron, and see what we need.
All right, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution. Mr. Ron, you want to respond in any way?
Yes, certainly. Well, I know the caller. Again, I empathize. I'm sorry that things can't go as fast as it should be, but that's part in the bureaucracy that we're dealing with. But I would try my best to return there. I was in Tempe over the weekend and prior week, so I am aware of the situations. They are being solved. The grass is being cut. The roads are being done, and we're going to get it one by one.
Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. I know what Miss Jeremiah is saying, and she's always getting on the same subject. But she must understand that the young people do not listen to programs like this. She'll be better off going to the schools and to the prisons and talk to people rather than coming on the radio constantly and saying the same thing over and over and blaming other people for these young people's behavior. She needs to help in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Mr. Rami, you just have approximately 2 more minutes left on today's program. Any closing comments you have before we
well, certainly, as it relates to housing in particular in St. George Northeast, I would like to say that we have been engaged in some challenges. We need more skilled workers to support the program. The pay is always the issue, and I'm certain that if people are of the view that we can build a better society, they are going to join regardless of the low rates of pays, and will see the vision ultimately. But as it relates to Ministry, Youth, Sports and Culture, again, to the staff, PS, everybody who is currently involved in the CBN Windlot Island school games, hats off to you. You're doing a tremendous job. Grenada is leading, and I would like to see us continue in that vein. Let's keep doing our work. Pleasant morning to government, opposition, everybody. Toot moon.
All right. Mr. Ron, I want to thank you for being on the program this morning. Pleasure having a conversation with you. Of course, indeed a pleasure. From the inception of the conversation, I thought it would have been a good interview. And thank you once again. Hope to see you again coming back. And there, probably after Carnival, we come and probably have a little synopsis of Carnival, and everything else that's coming up in between. Thank you once again. To all who contributed to today's program, whether you called, you send a message, you listened, thank you so much for being part of To The Point today. Until we have another program, folks, have yourself a great day. That's why I say goodbye.